Joining us now for more on this is Tom Joscelyn, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and Senior Editor of the Long War Journal. This is evil. This is evil as it gets, Tom. What is the goal of this specific group?
Well, they've been working for a while now to carve out their own state in northern Nigeria, and they've made a lot of progress in that regard. And they've been taking on anybody who gets in their path. It's Christians, Muslims. They've directly targeted all religious faiths, security forces. Anybody who gets in their way is targeted.
What's their connection to al-Qaeda?
Well, you know, what's interesting is historically there actually are some ties to al-Qaeda, including we know that in Osama bin Laden's compound, there are actually letters found from the leadership of Boko Haram to bin Laden's lieutenants in discussing sort of how they're grooming that alliance. And the U.S. government has recognized on a number of occasions that Boko Haram has actually received support from several different al-Qaeda groups, including al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, AQAP, which we see in the headlines again, Shabab, which is an official al-Qaeda affiliate or branch in Eastern Africa. So basically they have a lot of ties to al-Qaeda. Where they are right now in the al-Qaeda sphere is sort of up for debate.
Their ultimate goal of creating this state in Africa is what? And is it a threat to us here in the United States?
Well, you know, what I would caution against is there's always this assumption that these guys are just local yokels who are basically interested in local violence, and then whoops, we find out they do have intentions to strike internationally. We've seen that with AQAP in Yemen and Saudi Arabia. We've seen that with other groups elsewhere. You know, the bottom line is this is a group that has already executed attacks outside of the borders of Nigeria. It's a group that's been tied to al-Qaeda branches in the past, so we really can't rule out that they're an event in the future are going to do something else.
The areas that were mentioned in the report about where this attack took place are very rural. So rural, in fact, and so dangerous in many cases that most journalists cannot even get into them. So we don't really know all the facts on the ground, and that's certainly a challenge to us in the United States as well. What should we be doing to make sure that Boko Haram doesn't pose more of a threat to us here at home?
Well, the key strategy in the Obama years has been to basically build up the local capacity of the local governments to take the fight directly to our enemies, the jihadist threat throughout the globe. The problem here is that there's no local force, no government force in northern Nigeria that's capable of taking these guys on. So we have to continue to work with them in the south, try and push them back as far as we can. But until there's actually a force in place to clear and hold that territory in Nigeria, as we've seen in the past in Iraq, without that clear and hold capacity, it's just not going to happen.
I was curious to read the editorial that President Obama penned with David Cameron about what should be done to confront terror. And one of their top priorities is to build up economies around the world. Nigeria has one of the best economies, the largest economy in all of Africa. It's about the same size of Poland because of the oil resources there. So what do you think of that as a top priority when you look to combating terrorism on an international level? Is that where we should be investing into Nigeria's economy, for example, to go after Boko Haram, or is that not wise?
Well, you know, the economy can be one pillar of basically trying to build a stable government to take the fight to these guys. So certainly there's something to that for sure. The problem is that the dynamics and the political dynamics in the country are so poisoned right now that even that is not really a viable solution to basically building a government to take the fight to these guys. You know, it's very interesting. Even before 9/11, al-Qaeda determined that Nigeria was one of the better places to wage a jihadist insurgency, and we're seeing that all these years later.
Interesting. So they already targeted, they already had it in their mind's eye, and look at it now. Tom, it's always great to have you in the program.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. John?